British vehicles used to have personalities that you could sense as soon as you turned on the ignition. The sound of a straight six coming to life, the smell of leather and polished wood, the long bonnet stretching ahead as you pointed the nose down a winding country road. The 1960s were a golden era for British motoring, a decade when brilliant engineering, adventurous design, and a little of British stubbornness produced automobiles that aficionados still talk about today. Back then, Britain wasn't only developing transport. It was creating machines that inspired people's dreams. Cars that could drive through London in style, race through rally stages, or roar down the freeway with effortless confidence. Some were sophisticated grand tourers designed for drivers who were gentlemen. Others were wild experiments that pushed engineering boundaries well ahead of their time. And that's exactly what makes these cars so amazing now. So in this video, we're counting down some of the most unforgettable British automotive icons of the 1960s, machines that caught the spirit of their era and left a legacy that still echoes through the classic automobile industry. As we go through the list, consider this: which of these legends would you bring back into your garage today? Now let's begin the countdown. At number 10 stands a car that flawlessly matched British craftsmanship with American muscle, the Jensen Interceptor. The Interceptor felt completely different from the standard British sports car when it was introduced in 1966. Jensen built a powerful grand tourer for long-distance comfort and speed rather than a tiny, light bike. The styling was stunning. Designed by the Italian firm Carrozzeria Touring, the Interceptor had flowing lines, strong proportions, and one of the most unique rear windows ever fitted to a car, a massive curved glass door that wrapped dramatically around the back. But the real surprise came under the bonnet. Jensen installed a huge Chrysler V8 engine in the Interceptor instead of a conventional British powerplant. Early versions had a 6.3-liter engine, and later vehicles received an even bigger 7.2-liter unit. The upshot was a car that produced tremendous performance with a deep American snarl that you simply didn't expect from a British Grand Tourer. It felt unique to drive one. Leather, oak, and traditional British luxury adorned the cabin, and the V8 delivered seamless power anytime your right foot demanded it. For many aficionados, the Jensen Interceptor represents a fascinating period when British design and American muscle came together to create something genuinely distinctive. But our next automobile revealed that sometimes the smallest machines may yield the biggest surprises. At number 9 we have the Sunbeam Tiger, a car that seemed harmless, but had tremendous power beneath its bonnet. The tale of the Tiger begins with the Sunbeam Alpine, a lovely little British roadster. Although it wasn't particularly renowned for its lightning-fast performance, it was fashionable and enjoyable to drive. That changed when one man came in, Carroll Shelby. Shelby had already turned the AC Ace into the renowned Cobra by fitting a Ford the Fifth 8. He spotted another chance when he turned to face the Alpine. The outcome was the Sunbeam Tiger. The Tiger abruptly transformed into something completely different by fitting a Ford the Fifth 8 engine into the Alpine's small body. Once a courteous roadster, it now possessed acceleration capable of embarrassing many larger sports cars. It was a huge change. For a car of its size, the Tiger's ability to reach 60 miles per hour in about 7 seconds was remarkable for the mid-1960s. However, it still appeared somewhat modest from the outside. The Tiger was quite attractive to enthusiasts because of this sleeper feature. It was the type of vehicle that could startle onlookers at a stoplight, leaving them perplexed. Here's a question for you. Do you enjoy sleepers like the Sunbeam Tiger that conceal their actual capability, or do you prefer machines with obvious performance? We now turn to number 8, the Bristol 411, a vehicle so rare that many people have never even laid eyes on one. Bristol Cars was never your average British automaker. From the start, the company concentrated on producing incredibly elegant, handcrafted cars for a select, devoted clientele. The Bristol 411, introduced around the end of the 1960s, continued that tradition in spectacular way. The design looked subtle at first, even conservative. However, that was part of the allure. Owners of Bristol frequently favored understated elegance over ostentatious design. But behind the surface, the 411 was a formidable force. It was powered by American V8 muscle, specifically a Chrysler engine that produced enormous torque and effortless performance, just like the Jensen Interceptor. When combined with Bristol's careful engineering, the outcome was a vehicle that could easily travel across continents. The workmanship inside was superb. Each switch, trim piece, and leather stitch was meticulously completed by hand. It wasn't about flaunting a Bristol. It was about being a part of a select group of individuals who knew what real car craftsmanship was all about. And the reason these cars are still so fascinating now is precisely because of their rarity. If the Bristol 411 was a symbol of sophisticated elegance, the following vehicle on our list offered something quite different: unadulterated sports car thrills. The Triumph GT6 is ranked 7th. The GT6, sometimes referred to as the poor man's E-Type, introduced svelte fastback style and true sports car performance to a far larger market. Triumph created the GT6 by adding a stunning fixed-roof fastback body to the Spitfire's lightweight chassis. The end product was a small coupe that appeared much more costly than it actually was. But the real magic came from the engine. Instead of the Spitfire's modest 4-cylinder powerplant, the GT6 received a 2.0-liter straight-six. The automobile felt far more sophisticated than many tiny sports cars of the era thanks to its engine's smooth, powerful demeanor. As much as the performance, drivers adored the sound. The straight-six generated a rich, mechanical snarl that made every drive feel like an event. Additionally, the GT6 curved roofline and extended bonnet gave it a look that wonderfully encapsulated the essence of the 1960s. For many aficionados, it was evidence that experiencing a genuine British sports car didn't require a large expense. Now for number 6, the Austin-Healey Sprite, a vehicle that gave a whole generation pure, lightweight driving pleasure. The Sprite is one of the few vehicles that perfectly embodies the carefree atmosphere of 1960s driving. It was compact, easy to operate, and a lot of fun. The iconic frog-eye headlights had been replaced by a more traditional style by the time the MK2 and MK3 models were released. However, the car's fundamental characteristics did not change. The Sprite was designed with simplicity and lightness in mind. It didn't need a lot of horsepower. Rather, it depended on driver engagement, balance, and agility. The Sprite felt alive when I was behind the wheel. You were reminded that driving may be more than just utilitarian at every turn, gear shift, and acceleration. And maybe that's why youthful enthusiasts in the 1960s adored these vehicles so much. They were inexpensive, simple to maintain, and ideal for weekend excursions on winding rural roads. Many fans of vintage cars still claim that the Sprite offers one of the purest driving experiences ever made. Number 5, a car that perfectly captures that wild spirit of the decade, the TVR Griffith. TVR was a modest British firm with lofty goals in the early 1960s. The business had already created lightweight sports vehicles, but the Griffith took things to an entirely different level. It was an easy-to-follow method that worked wonders. Install a potent American V8 engine on a relatively lightweight British sports car chassis. Sound familiar? But unlike many larger Grand Tourers of the time, the Griffith was brutally compact and exceedingly light. For such a little machine, the Ford 289 V8 engine used in the early models produced significant power. As a result, many drivers were totally unprepared for the sudden acceleration. This wasn't a courteous sports vehicle. It was difficult. The Griffith was known for being both exhilarating and occasionally terrifying due to its enormous engine and small wheelbase. In reality, a lot of drivers soon discovered that using the throttle required respect. But that was precisely the allure for devotees who yearned for thrills. The TVR Griffith represented the rebellious part of British driving, the concept that a small independent company could develop something wild and confront far larger manufacturers. In many respects, it also contributed to the development of TVR's bold personality, for which he would later become well known. However, the next vehicle on our list demonstrated that a modest family sedan might become a motorsport classic, despite the Griffith's raw and wild nature. The Ford Lotus Cortina is ranked fourth. At first glance, the Cortina appeared like a conventional British saloon, the sort of car a businessman might drive to work each morning. But when Ford joined with Lotus, something spectacular happened. The Cortina was made into a true performance machine by Lotus engineers. A unique twin-cam engine created by Lotus was installed in the vehicle, which produced remarkable power for its small. The Cortina became one of the most thrilling sedans of its time thanks to lightweight panels, updated suspension, and racing-focused upgrades. The outcomes were amazing on the racecourse. During the 1960s, the Lotus Cortina dominated touring car racing and was a favorite vehicle of some of the best drivers of the time. It was extremely competitive due to its minimal weight, balance, and responsive handling. However, the fact that regular enthusiasts could purchase one was what really made the vehicle unique. You could take a Lotus Cortina to the racecourse on the weekends after driving it to work throughout the week. Among aficionados of vintage cars, the car's dual personality contributed to its legendary position. Even now, admirers are quickly transported back to the heyday of touring car racing when they see one in its recognizable white paint with the green racing stripe. The next vehicle in the top 3 was among the most technologically sophisticated vehicles of its time. The Jensen FF is located at number 3. While many cars in the 1960s concentrated on style or speed, the Jensen FF focused on innovation. In actuality, it introduced 2 innovative technology that would eventually be widely used in contemporary automobiles. First, the Jensen FF had full-time all-wheel drive, something nearly unheard of in a production road car throughout the 1960s. Secondly, it had an early anti-lock braking system. That's correct. ABS technology, decades before the industry adopted it as the norm. These features made the Jensen FF one of the most advanced automobiles of its day. Nevertheless, it continued to provide the performance and luxury one would anticipate from a grand touring vehicle. Similar to the Interceptor, it was powered by a strong Chrysler V8, which allowed for seamless and smooth speed. Unfortunately, the FF was costly to manufacture because of its intricate engineering. The surviving examples are extremely uncommon now because only a tiny number were ever constructed. However, in retrospect, the Jensen FF should be acknowledged as a true pioneer, a vehicle that subtly introduced technology that will influence the automotive industry going forward. Speaking about uncommon vehicles, our list's runner-up may be among the most sophisticated and exclusive British Grand Tourers of the decade. The AC Frua is ranked second. Although the Cobra is the company's most well-known product, the Frua showed a completely different aspect of the business. Italian stylist Pietro Frua created the vehicle, which blended stunning continental design with British engineering. The AC Frua resembled an exotic European Grand Tourer due to its long length, low height, and exquisite proportions. But beneath that gorgeous physique lay significant performance. The Frua's outstanding speed and smooth cruising ability stemmed from a Ford V8 engine that was similar to the Cobra's. The automobile was completely luxurious inside. Each example seemed unique thanks to the hand-stitched leather, expertly created trim, and a feeling of exclusivity. In actuality, very few people have ever actually seen an AC Frua. One of the rarest British Grand Tourers of the 1960s, it was produced in incredibly tiny quantities. However, people who are familiar with these vehicles recognize their true uniqueness. And finally we've reached number 1, a car that caught the spirit of open-top British motoring and became an icon around the world. Sunbeam Alpine. One of the most well-known British roadsters of the time was the Alpine, which debuted in the early 1960s. With its clean style, low stance, and simple grace, it perfectly complemented the daring spirit of the decade. It wasn't the fastest sports vehicle on the road, but that wasn't exactly the objective. The Alpine was about the experience. You drove across the countryside with the top down, the wind in your hair, and the sound of the motor reverberating off stone walls. It was a car meant for leisure, for weekend travels, for finding new routes. The Alpine also earned international popularity when it appeared in the early James Bond film Dr. No, giving it a touch of cinematic history that many old automobiles can only dream of. Above all, though, the Alpine stood for accessibility. During one of the most thrilling decades in automotive history, it made it possible for regular drivers to feel the rush of owning a chic British sports vehicle. And for that reason, it should be at the top of this list. Now I'm curious about something. Which of these amazing British icons from the 1960s would you most like to have today? Which would it be, the legendary Lotus Cortina, the thunderous Jensen Interceptor, the rebellious TVR Griffith, or the classic Sunbeam Alpine? Let us know in the comments, since for many old automobile fans, this is a debate that may run all night. And if you appreciate stories about the golden age of British driving, make sure you stay tuned, because there are still many more hidden legends waiting to be uncovered.